calendar month. And
Okay.
so we usually go over that, but so if we have one time, like Rossiter's first team had 6 kids all year, and they were extremely high need kids, and they went over every month. Now we have 2 teams out there, and it's more of a balance. They're not all kids in crisis, so they're not quite as intense as that. So it just depends on how many you already have on your caseload, because you could do 10 well and 11 badly, or maybe there's stages of treatment. So if you have kids that are all in the very first phase of treatment, if they're all honeymooning, you think you can do 15. And then, and then they get real. And they feel safe with you, and they'll show you how they really are and who they really are and what kind of help they really need. That takes a lot more intense support. So it just depends on the kid and what kind of supports the school has and what kind of resources the family have. But there's no set caseload amount. So we average about 12, but we've gone down to 6 and couldn't do 7 well. We would have tanked 7 rather than do 6 well. So it depends on the current caseload and how much room we have.
So for what? Go ahead.
But the team is always just 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't use any paras, you don't use any...
No,
Just-
we're actually restricted. We cannot do anything a para could do. So in the example I gave about the math, a para might be sitting with the next child teaching math skills, and we're both working on a math worksheet. I'm working on emotional regulation, behavioral control, tolerating, all those. They're working on multiplication. So we cannot replicate what a para can do, but we are with paras all day long. They work with our kids too. So yeah, they do a different thing than we do, but we're all in the same. So when we're audited, they specifically look to see if we are providing services that the school district is responsible for through a para. So.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So the reimbursement is not based per child. It's
It is.
oh, it is. So
It's,
this-
well, the maximum per team, but some children may be ending treatment and they only need a check-in once a week. Some may be brand new and they need several check-ins all day. So it depends on, just the team has to, that's all they're going to get paid.
for all of the children.
Yep.
It's not
Mhm.
per individual child.
No, it's
so
not,
You
it's
have
not.
to balance.
Mhm.
This child needs more.
Right.
And
And then if they need more, they will call on us, on the support staff. So I may end up going to a school if the 2 team members are both in a crisis and the school has number 3 and it's a child on a caseload, they will call on us to go to that school. And then if the child has other funding like Blue Cross or New West, whatever their health insurance is, typically that insurance company, that level of funding only covers the therapist. It will not cover the mental health specialist. So that means that child can only access the therapy. But the parent might say, or we might all say, really, therapy's great, but it's the other 24 hours, or it's the other, they need social skills. So then we have to talk with that parent about, well, this is what it costs. And they can apply for a sliding fee. That's why we have Festival of Trees. But, we just have to work with them, because really maybe the best thing is 1 hour of therapy and 6 hours of social skills every week. And so to give a child less than they need, that would mean they have to get worse to get what they need. So if you give them less than they need or the wrong level of service, then it's going to get worse. So you can't just say, well, your insurance is only going to cover the therapist, sorry, they need the rest. That would be unethical treatment. So that would make the symptoms worse. So we really have to talk about, after our assessment, what we think the child needs, what the parent wants to navigate and pay for, and then how do we work that out. So sliding fee or fundraising or grants, or we write a lot of grants. So, but we just barely make it still, even.
If you had more teams, could your schools use them?
Absolutely, yeah, there is room. The problem is room and sometimes culture.
I was just thinking, it sounds like if you just kept putting teams in the school, they would find kids to put in.
No, that's what
Oh,
like
yeah.
what percentage of kids
I
are
mean,
you dealing
No,
with?
you
It
have to
seemed
have
like there's
this
just so many
criteria.
kids who could use.
Well, you can't, I call that diagnosing for dollars. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't diagnose a kid as
I
mentally
know,
ill. today.
but I mean,
And
I'm still confused by how a child ends up in this program. Either they have a diagnosed mental illness, meaning within the
The list.
yeah,
Mhm.
and, and the school is aware of that.
Sometimes.
Or behavior within the school, or it could
So,
trigger someone suggesting that this would be a good idea, and then, so it's not, I don't know.
so they give us, they'll give us the name, and we're in a lot of committees that are just for the good of the school. You know, time the track meet, big pies for the big stuff, right? So we're in the rooms where kids are of concern and teachers are worried. So we call it an inquiry at first because it's not a referral. It's just like, will you see? So we'll talk with the teachers and the parents and say, what do you think? A lot of times, this is surprising, a lot of kids will be referred and they'll be in an absolute significant crisis, and that's their first introduction to mental health services. So they'll be like cutting or self-harm or suicidal, and that's the first time they've ever talked to a mental health person. So I did not anticipate that when I first started the program, but that does happen actually a lot. So,
And these kids are usually referred then by a teacher?
or no, it could be a parent calls, or
Oh,
it could
okay.
be an aware case manager, or a
Oh.
Dan Fox, or
Okay.
a physician, or another counselor, or sometimes the kids just
CPS
knock-
worker, if
C-
they
yeah,
were, if
sure.
they were in a
In
foster
services.
situation or something.
or the foster parent.
Do they automatically move up, like would an eighth grader, if they had had services most of the year in eighth grade, would you then notify
Roll up.
that you would, yes?
Roll them up, yeah. Mhm.
It sounds like it must be kind of hard to get slots in the program.
We do struggle with having a waiting list. Several of our teams have waiting lists, some don't. So what we try to do, and not every youngster, even if they have a mental illness, really is right for our program. The parent might say, I get it, but you know, I don't want this going on at school. I appreciate the
Oh.
assessment, but can you refer me? So I will refer them to community therapists or clinic, or, yeah, they might say, not now, but thank you. So they might size us up and say, I just don't want this level of care, or they're not really ready themselves. So because we're very clear that really the best opportunity for a youngster to get better is when everybody's working together, and so they're involved in their treatment and consulting. So
Do you find a lot of parents who give a lip service that they're gonna say they're gonna be involved and aren't?
yep, a fair amount. They'll start out and they just feel such relief that somebody just took over and they're not getting all the phone calls, and they just kind of
Back away.
like disappear. And so we call them every week, and then there's a point where we have to get very serious and say, this is a commitment. So if you really want your child to get better, the best way for a child to get better and have lasting results is your involvement. So we need you. And most parents will step up then. But typically, yeah, you see this sort of, they honeymoon too. It's like, take it away. Or they're just so glad not to be blamed. You know, they feel so embarrassed. And they're so tired of being called. And they're so sick of people speculating that it's their fault. Or it's actually true. Like they've really had a very chronically chaotic life. They haven't done a good job of parenting, and they're very aware of it, and it's just very, very hard to come face that. And so we just try to understand what that would be like. Walk 1 minute in their shoes, not a mile. It would be very hard to come in and be that exposed.
So is your age group start mostly at third grade then, if that's
Kindergarten.
when it is?
I'm just saying third grade teachers are my experts.
They know, okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering how many, like, younger,
No,
kindergarten, first,
all
and
the
they-
way up. They qualify through 23 if they're still in high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So did that help with who gets referred? Did that kind of explain?
I think so.
Because there'll be all kinds of acting in, acting out. Who's concerned?
So, I guess I'm thinking of a specific situation where there's obviously been major trauma, but there might not yet be behavioral issues. But you would almost expect that there will be.
Right.
Or they might just be starting in young, elementary school
Right.
age. And,
So we watch for that.
okay.
Because some people are just frankly more resilient. And so what I might think is traumatic is not even noticeable. So I might be at risk for overlaying my middle class values on this child. And so if they say, I'm good. In fact, we just had a conversation about this the other day. We have a youngster that says she's good. And it's really bothering the teen because there's no way she can be good living the way that she is. But she is, because that's all she's ever known, and so she just, you know, if there's a natural disaster, I'm going to find her, because she'll still be alive in a week. So, not all traumas causes mental illness. Some, you know, we're really, these kids are responding in a very, very normal way to a very difficult situation. So, you know, there by the grace of God, you know, go you. So, you don't want to pathologize because you're horrified. But sometimes we can get so numb, or we've seen so much, you know, that secondary trauma, that we've seen so much where sometimes we go, you know, buck up, Sally, life's tough, when really they can't buck up anymore.
Mhm.
So you have to know the subtle signs of mental illness and then the very blatant signs of mental illness too. So some of our kids will go through a acute phase. They'll need to be stabilized at Chaudere. We'll bring them back. Or they may need a run through the emergency room. They might need some other supportive intervention before we can really be useful to them. And that's what I mean about if you give them the wrong level of care. So if I open up mental health services to a youngster who really is in a critical state, they'll quickly fall apart. So we have to be ready until we really understand each other. It takes almost 3 months, but we really need to be ready to say, is this youngster truly safe in this environment? And how can I make it safe? What can I add to the environment of support? Where do I need an advocate? I call Pluck a lot. I don't know if you know about Pluck. They're very helpful. So how can I help the environment on the outside support this child while I'm working on the internal environment? So how can I do that? So that's a lot of the case management stuff we do. It depends on.
We're really lucky to have all of this.
Yes.
I'm thinking of 30 years ago. Sorry. When we would send a kid off to Chaudere and they'd get that 30 days, and then
Yep.
when the insurance was up, then they'd send them right back, and they'd come right back to that classroom and be, oftentimes worse.
Right.
But it's really nice to have a
Mhm.
continual.
One of the nice things about Chaudere is they're very good colleagues. So now,
Mhm. That's great.
they keep us informed while the youngster is away, and we try to facilitate at home, keeping the parents engaged in treatment while they're there, and then collaborate with the school before the child comes home and back to the school, which is real different than it used to be. So it's really helpful.
So do you meet then at your 90 days with all the teachers that are involved with that child, or?
We try to get them to have a designee, but anybody the child wants there can be there. So if he asks the whole team or she, it's their meeting, and the parent might bring a friend. And so we try to have who they feel is the person that they click with the best. Usually it's their homeroom teacher, or if it's elementary, it's the teacher. Might be a para, maybe it's somebody in the lunchroom line that they really relate to. But whoever really is, we call it in the heart of the child. Where do they feel safe? And then we just lay it all out there. Well, how are we doing? And usually our first 90 days we're not too good because they're feeling safe and they're starting to show that side of them that really is emotionally disturbed, and they're feeling exposed. And we usually take our best shot because we have to have our treatment plan written in 21 days. So in 3 weeks, in 3 weeks, what do you know? So we're looking at how are their relationships with their peers and other adults. Like, can they tolerate adult care and control? Are they able to establish or even begin a peer relationship, and then can they maintain that? And how are they managing their mood? How are they managing their behaviors? And then at about 90 days, we can say, well, you guys are really on track with 2 or 3 goals, or this is not working. So if we have to start earlier, we will. Sometimes 30 days in, we go, whoa, we're going down the wrong road here. So we just have to start over. But we ask for a lot of feedback. Like, how's it going? Because sometimes we're off. And then at any time that can be changed, if you feel like you're off track, which you sometimes are.
In 21 days, I can't hardly imagine that you would have all that high a success
Right.
rate.
What you have is what everybody thought.
Yeah.
So, if you talk to the teacher, they'll say, well, they're just disrupting my class all the time and they can't sit down, or they don't come to class, or they're rude and they're a bad role model, or whatever. And then you'll ask the parent, and they'll say, well, it's that school. If that parent could have an ounce of mercy for my kid, the teacher doesn't like him and the principal hates him. So really, and now the bullies in the school, they don't help. And then if you ask the kid, they'll say, I didn't have a problem until all the adults had a problem, now I have a problem. Really, I was fine, you know? And then at 21 days, really, you have to say what you're gonna do, and they're all watching you, because you're working for all of them. So it's kind of hard at 21 days to say, well, what's really going on? Because it's true, every one of those people that you're talking to are telling you the absolute truth of their experience of this youngster. So all you know is what's wrong. But it's very hard to know where that kid's strengths are. You know, maybe they really can read people well and they have great intuition. They're just using it very badly. Maybe they're very, very expressive, but the way they express it is very disrespectful. But they're, you know, put that kid in a speech class and teach him not to swear. No body parts, no body functions. That's the rule. So, you know, maybe they need to learn how to use silverware so other kids will have lunch with them. You know? You don't know. So at 21 days, you take your best shot, and then you're refining it constantly. So I just want to know, how can we help you? Because our experience has been, if we've had a CASA involved, it's an official person that signs documents. And so we're trying to say, hey, you know, how can we collaborate together? Or, geez, I'd like you to know this, or what, or
I
thank
think
you
as
so
soon as you
much.
do that, all you're gonna end up with is a lot more referrals.
It's okay. Okay. When you asked about more teens, the schools will max. I was thinking more schools need teens when you asked that.
Mhm.
I think there are some specific things that schools need that we're in, but they don't necessarily need another team. They need an infrastructure and they need a culture that really treasures every child and tries to find a way to be hospitable and welcoming and find a way to get that kid very excited about their life and have hope. That's what I would prescribe. And then there are some schools that just need a team, but they cannot, it's not important enough to give up the staff lounge yet. or to have the school nurse and the school psych and the speech pathologist share an office, to give up some space so that we can have good treatment space. So if you get the water closet, that's a clear message to the kid.
It'd be interesting to know really how many kids of ours you already do work with. I mean,
Yeah, it would be.
I mean, because, you know, I mean, just some of the kids you think about probably work with you, because I've heard it in child protection, or, you know, foster care review and such. So, I mean, that's a good idea, just to figure out how we can talk with you, or we can relate with what CASAs are
Right.
with your children, and or vice versa.
Well, but wouldn't a social worker know all of the above?
Yeah, and sometimes it comes up in family group if there's an, you know, I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys go to any family
We
groups.
do.
I mean,
But family decision making?
Yes.
Yeah, we do, but we have a whole fresh crop of social workers that are
Right.
actually not social workers. So I'm a little protective of the term because I am one. But the child protective service worker is so new that they don't get what I just explained to you either. So they're like, yeah, they're involved, but they don't really understand what it really is.
To find out though, couldn't, if we had a child that was, in school,
Mhm.
couldn't we just check with the principal
Yeah.
and say, are they getting any
What are they
services?
involved in? And
Sure,
what services
sure.
are they involved in?
There's another very good way that you can speculate. The Safe Schools Grant, one of their charges or challenges that they were very successful, or have been, they have 2 more years, and is creating a referral system. So they have an online referral system through the school district that community agencies have registered with. And so we all have HIPAA, high-tech, FERPA, confidentiality forms. And so when a youngster comes onto our service, we have them sign a release for that to be registered in that. Then if we refer to a community agency or another provider or something, the child is assigned an anonymous number. And so when we refer, like I will get an email that says you have a referral on the referral system. So I log in under my code, and that parent has consented to be referred to Intermountain. And it will have a number, and that number will have a letter after it. So it will be like number 120A or B or C or D. If it's not A, then I know that that child is involved with any of these other agencies listed. And so if you were listed there, people could refer, or you could, if you signed in, you could say, oh, this child's working with somebody. But it would be a way to refer kids in and out, or parents in and out of services. And it just fired up just a couple of months ago, and so all the physicians are on it, all the therapists are on it that I know in the community
Well,
service
and I found
provider.
schools to be, I haven't had a kid for a long time that's been in school, but when I have had kids be in the CASA, I was always amazed that every school, I would always meet the kid at school,
Sure.
and every school I went to was so receptive, you know, finding a little spot where we could just touch base, and it seemed to be so much better than being in the home with parents helping.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. Maybe I'll get a kid someday.
We
Only
give up our
school.
space sometimes for different
Oh, I do,
visitors,
yeah.
so if we're in the building and you need a place, get acquainted with our staff. And
Yeah.
I was just wondering about, Diana's thinking of the children she was thinking of. And I know like Donna and Alan, got kids that we know
Are severely traumatized.
that have been through the ringer, and if there's some kind of, do you have some kind of at-risk category of kids that aren't receiving the services but are on the radar, or?
every school has a waiting list, so you can contact any of us, and we'll check with the school, so our contact numbers are here. But what we try to do is quickly find support if it's not us. So I try to keep our staff very informed of everything that's going on in Helena, so they can say. And also this website I was just telling you about, where you log in, the referral system, that same grant also has a 211. Do you know what that is? It's a information for all community, so you know when to sign up for Babe Ruth baseball, and you can find out how to get swim lessons, and when the football games are, and everything going on in town, and all of the services are supposed to be listed there. So if we can't serve right away, then we try to refer out right away and make sure that at least you have a beginning, or consult. Just meet with you and say.
What was this website, Kimberly, that you're?
It's just the Helena School District website.
Oh, okay.
And this whole mechanism is called Safe Schools, Healthy Students, or you can also find it on the Youth Connections website.
Youth Connections,
You just
okay.
go in on the school district and all of those are listed.
Okay.
And then there's a whole description of safe schools. That'd probably be a good thing for you to do, is have them come and visit with you. They have great programs. They have home visitor programs, like they have a grant for the health department. I don't know if you know Marilyn Filipovich. She's the therapist there that manages the program Parents as Teachers, and it's for early childhood development. So how to help parents learn to be parents for those very early years. So
Yeah,
she does home visiting and parenting.
We have, Greg Daly is
Yep.
always part of our training.
Okay.
of new folks.
So, and then there's just all kinds of services they pay for. So that'd probably be a good thing for you to know about.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna, I bet you have social workers that are in the schools that see other kids. Do they refer kids sometimes? When they're in a
Yeah.
classroom and they see other kids
They
that
do,
probably
and
really need it?
and back and forth, because a lot of those school social service staff have groups going on also, or well, the younger ages do, like friendship groups and anti-bullying groups, and so as you get older, they have less and less. But yeah, we're on the same groups and we refer back and forth. Same with Project Success, the substance abuse. We're all in the same committees, and so if we're really worried, then we'll say, gosh, can you take a look at this kid? We're really thinking the substance abuse might be affecting this issue. So yeah, they're all in the same rooms we are. They have a process in the district now through this grant called the A-Team process, and it's just kids of attention, kids that need attention. That's what the A is for, and it's to unify the school district on how they identify kids at risk And then how do they stay identified, not fall off their radar? And then how do they know what happened to them? So a lot of times they'll worry about a kid for months, and no one can remember who was going to call the parents or refer out, and so the kid just is like muddles around for months. And so this process is very thorough. A lot of buildings had very, very tight referral systems or systems that this didn't change anything, they just changed the name of it. But some buildings really weren't very organized, and so this helped them kind of create a process where people who have talent come together. And so, you know, if you have a 5th grader that's acting out and his 3rd grade teacher or 1st grade teacher's in the building, you might go talk to that person and say, what really worked with this youngster? So it kind of pulls together those people in those buildings that have expertise, or maybe it's expertise in the child or it's expertise in the field, and say, what can we do? You know, really, would a check-in, check-out system happen? This is, Helena Middle School just initiated a formal check-in, check-out system. So their youngsters that are on their worry list or their A list get assigned a volunteer in the building, and it's anybody becomes this child's check-in, check-out person, and they greet him at the front door, and they check in with him through the day, and they greet him before they leave. So they just formalize that's an actual research-based. Everybody
So you
uses.
say just.
They just started it like a couple months ago.
Okay.
Some buildings do that informally, some have it very structured. It really is dependent upon the passion of the building and kind of the kids they're working with too. So they're learning. Yep. And that's.
And
My-
all
my one
that plus
that's really a
school's going
mess
on
is
too.
it-
Yeah, really.
Yeah, time for math and
Yeah.
science, my God.
Well, we know if you're pretty emotionally dysregulated, or you're hungry,
Yeah.
or you witnessed domestic violence last night, or you're grieving, or you're lost,
School's not
you're
going on
not really
anyway.
going to learn very well.
Right.
And that's hard for schools because they have a lot of pressure. No Child Left Behind. They have all the achievement testing, all the annual, yearly progress, and so there's a ton of pressures on school to teach to the test and to really get outcomes. And so it's a tough job. It's not that they don't care. They have to get their building scores up to keep their funding. So it's a real challenge.
Have you had opportunities to sit down with a school and help them understand their culture sucks? I mean, that would be a really hard thing to help them understand, I would think.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we had the first couple conversations, like we met with Fort Georgians several times before we started. And we'll be starting in April or end of March. If we find the right person, we include them in the recruiting and hiring of our staff so that they are in on the introduction. But so a lot of times we'll arrive and then they feel like it was bait and switch. Like, I thought you were going to be what help looked like, and so you want me to talk about my own anger management, like, not interested, So it can be challenging, and so we just try to find a lot of ways to integrate, like I say, time the track, meet, bake, the pie for the bake sale. Find ways to just rub elbows and get to know and build relationships in this school, and really, you're just not invited into the family for a while. So, and the school district has had a lot of novel, pretty good ideas that weren't funded very long, and so the schools are used to the next new thing. And they're like, okay, if you're here next year, I'm gonna learn your name.
Oh my God.
So, they're sick of it, and so you can't really blame them. So we just go in and say, how's it going? We ask all the time, how's it going? And one-on-one build those relationships, and when they see some success with our kids, then they start saying, well, how'd you do that? And also we talk to them about our experience. Some kids are very hard to like. Some kids are very, very challenging, and we're stuck. And we just say, I'm stuck. We need to call a team meeting. I need supervision because I don't know what else to do. And so when they see that in us, then they're willing to say, what is it with this kid? Or, can you explain adjustment disorder to me? Or, like bipolar, the new mental illness, there's a lot of prejudice about that. And some kids actually have bipolar. And some kids have a depressed response to anxiety or an anxious response to depression. And so you see these two polar opposite behaviors and you go bipolar, but it's not. It's a trauma reaction or it's an agitated depression. And so it looks like, but it isn't. Or sometimes they can over-relate, and then they'll say, you know, well, I have generalized anxiety disorder, and you do too. That's, you know, I was like, no. Oh, shit. So you kind of have to teach them how to be partners with us. But it can take a lot. We share a lot of what they call PIR days, teachers training days, and so we're on the agenda, just like the Project Success folks are on. We just went to a presentation on the new drugs and alcohol and all the over-the-counter. So we're always cross-training. So it takes a while, though. It really takes. The easiest school to open a program in is one that has an MBI culture already, because they've come together and collaborated on what do we say, what do we stand for, what's our school culture, how will we regulate ourselves, what is naughty behavior, what deserves to be sent to the principal, what can this teacher handle on their own. So they become unified, and they have a lot of celebrations, and they have just real joy in the building, and they take things seriously too. Those schools are very ripe and ready. And then there are other schools who have always done it this way, and they were doing fine before you arrived. And so you have the water closet until you prove yourself. So that's harder. You just, they're tired of the new deal. So it's, now we've been at it long enough, so Helena School District is more like they're willing to discuss. And we don't always get it right either, so you have to create opportunities to really problem solve together, and if you have misfires, you just start over. So you have to have that kind of relationship where, you know, if you're working towards one goal and the school's another, you gotta catch it fast, because that will happen. I might think something is a 4-alarm fire, and the school's like, really? You know, take a number, get mine. So, you know, I might want this principal to give the business. So another really great thing that we did is we really collaborated with the school resource officers, and they send police officers to school mental health conferences, national conferences with us through this grant. And so they have specially trained school resource officers that have been specially trained in child and adolescent mental illness. And so we've really partnered with them. So, you know, we don't criminalize everything, and they don't come, you know, like I think if you call up Pizza Hut, they're going to deliver a pizza, right? When I call an SRO, I don't want a police officer in the room. I really want just a human being. I just want a big guy that can establish the structure, you know, or that can really be helpful. Sometimes these kids have very close relationships with the school resource officers because later in the day they're at their house, or they're the ones that have arrested them, and so we really try to work on those relationships. I'm not here to harm you, but accountability and responsibility is a life skill. So you may have mental illness, but you broke the law, and so there's a consequence. We're going to walk you through that. You know, you might have to go talk to Sharon, or you might already have a probation officer. We're going to learn about restitution, and we're going to learn about being accountable and keeping your appointments and how to work your way out. So that was another strength. I think it took us a while to figure out that they are as invested in those kids as we are. We just didn't know what to do with them. Like, what do you do with a police officer? And now we're all collegial. They're their football coaches, their basketball coaches. They're as active in the school as we are. So that really made a huge difference as well. So we're all on the same side. The culture's a tough one. Yeah. I think Helena's coming a long way, mostly through, I think, a lot of Crazy Youth Connections. They do a lot of things for kids in this community and try to promptly respond to areas of concern. Like, do you know about the Keep It in the Ring campaign? Keep It in the Ring is a media campaign to, what we were seeing is there's a lot of boxing clubs and a lot of martial arts or mixed martial arts clubs, and so you have to get beat into, it's sort of like the beginning of a gang life. And yeah, in garages, yeah. So what we would do is we would see kids that were beat up, and we thought they were beat up by their parents, and they voluntarily engaged in a violent activity in a fight club in someone's garage. And so we were getting this culture seeping very quickly that you don't tell, you don't mark out, you don't tell, but you're actually injured. And parents can't tell either because kids are persuaded that they can't file charges. So Youth Connections got a community forum together and did just an outstanding job and did this whole media campaign to Keep It in the Ring. So if you're gonna be a boxer or a fighter, you're gonna do it in the ring, and it's gonna be according to the principles that are, self-respect and respect for others, and it's an athletic event, not a violent thing. They also brought forward a campaign where if adults sponsor or hide a party where alcohol is served, that the adult, that's a city ordinance, that the adult can be cited for sponsoring an alcohol-related event. And so that really changed our culture in Helena about, it's okay as long as you give me your car keys. Kind of scary. So they're doing everything that they can do, Youth Connections, which came along before Safe Schools, and I'm sure they'll exist after, but that's one of their passions, is making Helena a great place for kids.
Great.
So it's a challenge.
Impressive program.
Yeah,
I
really.
like it.
Wow.
Very, very nice
You can have the
presentation.
rest of these if you want to just.
Great,
Sure,
yeah.
yeah, we can.
Sure. And feel free to call if you have a kid that you're worried about, if you just want to talk, or you want me to take a look at the case. If you want an intake, you have to have a release, but if you just want to talk out loud or think out loud about a youngster, what might be useful.
Or even to find out if you've already got them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would welcome you anytime to any teams. It's always helpful when we have the whole team there, so that we have a perspective of really what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you very much.
Thank you.
Tim.
thanks for asking.
Because I surely have them qualified.